All right, I'm going to go ahead and call the roll so that we can call the meeting to order. Nicole.
Here.
Michelle.
Here.
Dawn.
Here.
Rodney. I think that was a here, but you were on mute. I see you. We'll count that. Okay, thank you. Robbie is not going to be here. Benji is not going to be here. Paul, we don't have anybody on the phone, correct, Brad?
Correct.
I'm going to jump off just for.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, having established a quorum, I hereby call the Neuse Charter School Board of Directors February meeting to order at 6:03 p.m. on February 23rd, 2021. I'm now going to read our ethics statement. Conflict of interest reminder per NCGS 138A-15E. Board members are reminded that it is our duty to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflicts of interest as we handle the work of this board. Does any member of the board know of any conflict of interest or any appearance of conflict with respect to any matters coming before us at this meeting? If so, please state them for the record. If during the course of the meeting you become aware of an actual or apparent conflict of interest, please bring the matter to the attention of the chair. It will then be your duty to abstain from participating in discussion on the matter and from voting on the matter. All right, moving on to the reading and approval of the January meeting minutes. We can read these aloud or silently, or if everyone has already read them since they were posted in our meeting packet, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
This is Booker, so moved.
Is there a second?
I second.
Wonderful. Are there any corrections? Okay, then we will go ahead and vote on the motion to approve the minutes. Nicole.
Aye.
Michelle.
Aye.
Dawn.
Aye.
Rodney.
Aye.
Paul, we're voting on approving the minutes. So Paul, we had a motion and a second. Aye. Okay, wonderful. All right, so the minutes are approved. Okay, we are to public comment. Brad, do we have anyone who would like to make a public comment?
No, ma'am.
All right, thank you so much. We are now at guest discourse, and Dr. Carpenter is joining us again. Dr. Carpenter, that was perfect timing. We are just ready now to begin the guest discourse so that you can begin your micro training. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry about that. I'm having computer problems as well. If you all can do the share screen thing here, I've got a handout. I will share.
Okay.
Present. Let's see. Present now. Entire screen. Okay. Maybe come back to me and just, well, if you can leave my share screen on thing here. I'm having, the computer's telling me, try it one more time. It's telling me my Google Chrome won't let me share the screen for some reason.
Do you,
I don't know. I think it's on my end.
do you want to email it to one of us and have one of us share it?
Let me try this here. Yeah, let's do that. Let me convert this to a PDF because it's in Pages here, and I will send it to Dr. Edwards, and then I can talk about it, and you all can follow along. It's not. It is not complex.
That sounds great. Thank you.
PDF. There we go. All right. Let's see here. Assuming that this emails. Oh, let's see. I've got, okay, here we go. I've got a couple of, I just threw in a couple of other addresses that were right handy. So 3 or 4 of you'll get it. All right, so Board President Jackson and Director Deming asked me to talk about with you tonight some just quick concepts on recruiting new board members and on onboarding them once you have them. So I got a little handout put together. As I say, I just emailed the PDF to you. So it's really just 5 questions. Where can we find good candidates for the board? What qualities should we look for? What should we do once we recruit an individual? Who's responsible for recruiting members? And is it better to recruit based on specific skill sets or recruit based on overall competence and commitment? So question 1, where do we find good candidates? I always tell people if I ever come up with, hang on just a second here. There we go. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Edwards. So next slide, if you would, please, just advance it. So I always tell folks, you know, if I ever come up with a really satisfying answer to this, I'd make $1 million. The only answer I can give you is you get board members from the same wells, if you will, that from which other groups draw their volunteers. So in the case of the school, you know, parents and guardians, I like to look for ones that are already involved. Civic clubs that some of you might belong to, churches, your friends and colleagues, and also don't rule out local businesses. Some of them actively encourage their employees to volunteer. You do want to be careful to avoid conflicts of interest. So I wouldn't necessarily have an employee of a company that directly benefited from doing business with the school, but if it's an indirect relationship, like say a bank, you know, a bank officer or something, would indirectly benefit from the board's banking relationship with them, but not directly benefit. So just be mindful of that. But those are really the only places that that you can get them from. And I, as I say, I know that's not terribly helpful, but nobody has ever come up with a silver bullet answer to that question. I've over the years, when I was leading schools, I've found people myself in civic clubs. That's sometimes a thing that people overlook, but you've got very civic-minded people, otherwise they wouldn't even be in the club. And they usually are good folks who have connections to other people, including donors. So if any of you are Rotarians or you know, Lions or Kiwanis and all that, definitely think about the folks that you might be able to talk to in your civic club. All right, so you want to put the next slide up, Dr. Edwards?
Yeah. Give me 1 second. It disconnected it. I'm trying to open it in.
Yeah.
Okay, I got it to work in Docs. Okay.
I was looking at the slide, and all of a sudden I was looking at Rodney's face.
Sorry about that.
It's all right. Okay, second question. What qualities should we look for? I basically recommend 3 principal qualities. So first of all, you obviously want people that are ethical. And on this one, that first sentence there is a quotation, and I have it footnoted at the bottom. That comes right out of the GAO Green Book on internal control, and it's a great quote because it's important to internal control and also important to you for recruiting board members. The takeaway is, if a business person, like say a real estate developer or somebody, has a kind of a shady reputation as a corner cutter or maybe not ethical, I would avoid those folks at all costs. So because as a board, as an oversight body, you have to demonstrate a collective commitment to integrity and ethical values. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, if you want to scroll down just a little bit, Dr. Edwards is competent. And this is a somewhat broad concept, but I prefer people who are competent as working as part of a group, competent at assimilating new information, for which there is much when it comes to the oversight of a charter school. And then scroll down a little bit further, Dr. Edwards. I'm not sure what happened to my copy here, but it's all jumbled up there. So just focus on the green, and then competent at fulfilling their responsibilities. So, for example, committee assignments. There's a big caveat that I frequently have to remind folks, and that is that competent in one's chosen profession or endeavors does not mean that one is competent at governance. Many boards make this mistake, and it can literally cost you the school. Thus, the next quality in my list is equally as vital. So scroll down. And that is committed. This characteristic encompasses a commitment to the purpose of the school and, in all caps, a commitment to participate in board-approved development and self-assessment. And we'll talk more about that in the onboarding question in just a moment. Little illustration on this point about just because you're competent in your chosen endeavors or professions, it doesn't automatically translate to competence at governance. I maintain that governance is a unique set of skills based on a set of premises that make it different from management. So just because a person is competent at management, you can't assume that they're going to come onto the board and they're going to be competent at the oversight of management. An example I like to give of this is a school in Atlanta where the founder stole about $1 million over a 18 to 20 month period. He ended up getting convicted and 10 years in jail, but he stole so much money that the school literally collapsed. What was odd, in a sense, about that situation is that his board was composed of very high-flying individuals that were competent in their respective professions. So, for example, this happened in Atlanta, which is home to Coca-Cola, and they had a senior manager from Coca-Cola on the board. They had somebody who'd been part of the governor's office a few years earlier that had helped uncover a massive test cheating scandal in Atlanta public schools. So they had really sharp, really accomplished people on their board. The term that the Georgia Department of Ed used was it was a blue ribbon board, but they hadn't learned how to govern the school, which is how to provide oversight of school financial management. And this founder was able to literally steal them right out of existence. So just don't get tripped up when we're talking about competence, because you still have to train them to govern. All right, question 3, and this is where we get to the training. What should we do once we recruit an individual board member? And that is thoroughly orient them. I recommend providing the following documents, and I've got a bullet point list of documents: your code of conduct, your bylaws, your systematic oversight calendar, and then some practical things like a list of current board members that reflects current office held along with their contact information, a list of committees, the purpose of each committee, the composition of each committee, your certificate of insurance, the most recent financial audit, and optional, and I think I provided you all copies of this. If I haven't, I would be happy to do it at no charge. But I wrote a little publication, it's maybe 12,000 words tops, called Governing for Greatness. And it's really was intended to be a primer for board members. So optional, you could give them a copy of that, but not just giving them the documents, sitting down with them, walking them through it, making sure they've read it, making sure that they've had the opportunity to ask questions. This is the onboarding thing is so vital. I mean, we do it in our professional lives, but it's really shocking to me. Over the last 15 years, I used to survey board members a lot before trainings, and I would say upwards of 90% of board members that took that survey in those years would tell me that they didn't receive any orientation when they joined the board. When you think about the scope of duties that you all do, that's a really significant gap. Okay, next one. Who is responsible for recruiting new board members? I realize you have a governance committee, but really, this is a job that falls to all officers and directors that are committed to seeing the school competently governed into the future. With self-perpetuating boards, which is what you are, versus an elected board, I also recommend obtaining the school leaders' confidential input, because every school has a few people that might be problematic when it comes to maintaining the full board's relationship with the leader. For example, a parent that the leader feels might be motivated to get on the board so they can push some personal agenda, or who has an axe to grind with the leader, would not be what I would call the ideal candidate. Obviously, it's the board's decision in the end, but I would definitely pay attention to what my school leader had to say, because I know as a school leader, there were certain parents, just the thought of them getting on the board would keep me awake at night. So you have to factor that in when you think about, we've got a trust relationship to build and maintain with our leader, and it really is a case of one bad apple can spoil the whole barrel. So be really careful about that. And then lastly, and Michelle and I were talking about this earlier today, is it better to recruit based on specific skill sets, or to recruit based on overall competence and commitment? So on this one, there's two schools of thought. There's what I call the partridge in the pear tree model, is how I termed it in my first book. And that's the school of thought that says, you should get an accountant and an HR professional and an attorney and an educator. In some states like Nevada and South Carolina, this model is actually built into the charter school statute. And while it has obvious benefits to it, it usually contains an unspoken assumption that the role of the board is to co-manage the school. So you want these people with these professional backgrounds to help with the co-management. So while I'm not opposed to filling vacancies, like you absolutely do need one or two people on a board that are very comfortable with financial statements and metrics and audits and all that kind of stuff. You want to be clear in your own minds and in the onboarding process with the new folks that we value the professional knowledge that you bring to the board, but we're not going to be looking to you to use that knowledge to help us co-manage the school, because we're not doing that. The second approach, which is the approach I prefer, but again, in states where the board is elected versus self-perpetuating, you don't get to do this. In your case, you can very much follow this approach. I call it Jim Collins' approach, if you've read Good to Great or Built to Last, or any of those books. He's very big on getting the right people on the bus. In this case, the right people are the qualities I discussed under question 2, then figuring out what's the right seat for them on the bus. So that is the approach I prefer. In the end, it's really, practically speaking, it's probably a blend of two things. You're always going to be looking for certain skill sets, but at the same time, you really want competent people that are committed to the school and ethical in the ways that I've defined it. And then in bold purple down at there at the bottom, just always bear in mind that a school leader can never be any more effective than her in this case, board allows her to be. So meaning that when you're looking at it from the board angle, you don't want to inadvertently add people to the board that are going to wittingly or unwittingly or intentionally or unintentionally impede your superintendent's effectiveness. That's a big topic. I'm actually doing some writing about that topic right now, and it's very relevant to recruiting board members. All right, Madam Chair, I'll do a quick Q&A if the board so wishes.
That would be great. Does anybody have any questions for Dr. Carpenter or thoughts on this?
Hi, Dr. Carpenter. What are your thoughts on bringing in outside people, maybe to assist with interviews of potential candidates?
I like it, especially if those outside folks have some abilities, to fathom who people are in an interview. I'm not one of those people, by the way. I'd be happy to help you all, but I am hiring people as one of my weaknesses. When I'm running a school, I always have to rely on the senior leadership team because I'm too easily fooled based on what I see at face value. So you want to look for people that have that skill set. But I like it, and the reason is I think you ought to be as careful about adding new board members as you are about hiring any other senior leader in your organization.
Thank you.
That was a great
Welcome.
question, Dawn. Any other questions? Okay, well, hearing none, thank you, Dr. Carpenter. We, as always, appreciate your time and your expertise and that training. I think it was very, obviously very timely. And I know Michelle's going to speak more about the actual process and sort of where we are. But I love these questions. I think they will really help us be thoughtful in how we approach this. And I am particularly happy to see number 4 on the list, which is that we are all responsible for recruiting new members. And, I think even though we have a committee that is doing an exceptional job, I do think that if we all sort of really work to think about who we might know or who, where we might be able to look for potential new board members, we'll have a really robust search and hopefully we'll find some really, really good candidates. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Okay, moving on. Dr. Edwards, do we have any correspondence from our authorizer that you need to share with us?
No, I don't.
Okay, wonderful. I like checking things off this list. That means that we are ready for your superintendent's report.
All right, let me just share. It is brief this evening. I'm going to be quickly going over the 2 major things that are happening on campus. One is the lottery. We opened our lottery on February 1st, and as of today, we have 602 applications. Total lottery for last year was 589. We have 72 siblings and staff children of those 602 applications. So we're quite excited to see that number and knowing that we have several weeks left to go before the lottery, which is March 17th. The additional update is for COVID. We just got word this afternoon that the Johnston County Health Department received their shipment of vaccines. So they had tentatively scheduled a vaccine for private and charter schools for February 25th and March 1st. And because they received their shipment, our staff is now eligible to go to those clinics and receive their COVID vaccine. In addition, we are continuing to access how we can add students back as families are tiring of Plan C and as the numbers are decreasing. Also heard just this afternoon that the governor is expected to make an announcement shortly, as early as tomorrow, to ease some more restrictions. And we are going to be waiting and listening to what he has to say. Hopeful that we can start to have some normalcy very, very soon. And that is all I have to share.
Well, Thank you very much. Lots of great news. I am super excited about the lottery, as I'm sure the rest of the board is as well, to know that with 3.5 weeks still remaining, we already have more applicants than we did last year total, is wonderful news. I'm
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I'm sorry, excuse me. Are we privy to knowing how many spaces are available for each grade? To that information?
I can get that to you. Typically, we don't release it until the day of the lottery, but I can see what I can do to get you maybe an estimate.
Oh, I mean, I don't want anything that's not appropriate. I didn't know. I couldn't remember. I think I remember when I was at the lottery, they said how many slots, but I didn't know if that was ever something that we got ahead of time. But if it's confidential information, don't send it to me. I just had someone ask, and I was like, oh, I don't know. I'll ask the superintendent.
Well, we do know we'll have 75 seats in kindergarten. That's always a given.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and some of that too, Dr. Edwards, I'm sure is partly because it could change between now and then as well, right?
That's right.
Okay.
So an estimate is not confidential. I can get that and share it out.
Okay, thank you. I'd appreciate
Yeah, that'd be great. Any other questions about the lottery? Okay, and Dr. Edwards, just as a quick refresher, we're doing the lottery online.
It will be fully virtual.
Fully virtual. Okay.
Just as our meetings are like this. Mm-hmm.
Yes, perfect. Okay, that's what I thought. Just wanted to make sure in case anyone's watching and had a question about that. And also really good news about the COVID vaccine, and hopefully, that's something that a lot of people will take advantage of. I'm grateful and happy to hear that that's a possibility. And we'll all wait with bated breath to hear what Governor Cooper shares tomorrow.
Yes.
So, any other questions from the board before we move on? Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Edwards. Our financial report, Benji was not able to attend, and my understanding is that he asked you to present it, Rodney. Is that accurate?
That would be correct.
Wonderful. Well, take it away, sir.
Okay. Nothing really exciting this month. I was going to pull up the L4 view of the budget really quickly. Okay, it won't let me present it for some reason.
That has happened to me with Google. I don't. That's happened to me a lot with Google.
Okay. You can look in the folders. I mean, the budget's there in the folder. Nothing significant changed in the budget for this month. We're still showing a $7,000 surplus for the current projected budget for the year. There will be some changes in the next month or so, because we've got to reconcile a lot of the COVID money to come in. It'll hit in different revenue categories. From initial, looking at it, it's just going to move the numbers in a positive direction. So no alarms there. It's pretty steady as we go right now. That's it.
That's great. All right, wonderful. So just to make sure that I'm understanding, so what are you saying that the $7,000 surplus that we're showing should improve once the COVID monies are all sorted through?
Yeah, some of the expenses that we have been incurring were actually a result of COVID money allocations that should show up on the revenue side.
Great. Okay, that makes sense. All right, wonderful. Anybody have any questions for Rodney? All right, y'all are taking it easy on me tonight since I missed last month. Michelle, you took the hard one for me. Okay, so we're going to move on to our standing committee reports. The executive committee did not meet Finance, we just heard from. Academic affairs did not meet. Resource development, Paul,
So we didn't meet as a committee, but I had a conversation with Melissa regarding the future of the committee and some of the things that we can do along the lines to support her, and we'll get back together on that soon. So thanks.
Great. Okay. Thank you so much. Board development, Michelle.
Okay. So we only met one time since I know, right? Because we've been meeting 4 or 5 times. But we met on, I believe it's February the 1st to discuss our nominations process and the process for taking on new board members. The new board member application has been posted on our website. And so that's available. It's been on our Facebook page. The nominating committee is going to meet on March 1st, next Monday night, to kind of discuss how we want to handle getting the word out more in the community and how we want to handle that process, as well as the interview process for the new candidates. The bylaws, just update on that. Dr. Carpenter gave us some good feedback, and I have posted, I was waiting to get his feedback before I posted the bylaws for everybody to review and make comments, but they are now posted in our BOD documents under bylaws. And so they're there and ready for review and comment. There is one section, I believe it's 5.4G, as it relates to terms, that may be a little bit confusing because we're not in a, we're not all in agreement yet on where we should be in that section. So that may be a little bit confusing in that one area. But please make comments. I just ask that you don't, this is a copy, so it's not the main document itself. I just ask that you don't edit it, but use the suggestion mode or make comments so that we can see everybody's feedback on the bylaws as well. And I think probably would be a good idea as far as the going back to the new board member process is to send everyone by email the PDF document, as well as there's a Google form that if one rather do the Google form as opposed to the PDF document, that's both available. And that way, whenever you have someone that's interested, you can send them that information as well. And I think that's it. Does anybody have any questions?
When's the deadline, Michelle? I might have missed it. I'm sorry.
It is, I should know this off the back of my hand, but it's either March the 21st or March 22nd. Hang on, let me look at my calendar and I will tell you. It is March 22nd is the deadline by 5 o'clock to get those in.
So have we already received any applications?
No, they went live, I believe it was Thursday night or Friday morning. I can't remember which of last week. I have not received anything at this time. So, and there are also, with the application this year, we added links to our board documents, a link for information about the school. There's a link for our charter agreement. There's a link with all of our meeting dates, so that when everyone applies, they'll have all the information handy.
Thank you.
Other questions for Michelle, either about the nominations for new board members or the bylaws updates? Well,
And we'll just need everyone, I'm sorry, Jane, we'll just need everyone, yeah, we just need everyone to pitch in and, help us recruit new members. I know I talked to a person last week, and actually I sent them a copy of the application today. So just need everyone to kind of pitch in and let us know your thoughts, ideas, reach out to individuals that you know that may be interested.
Absolutely. And I really want to thank the Board Development Committee and the Nomination Committee. You all have been working nonstop for the last few months on the bylaws revisions and on preparing for this. So I, really appreciate all of that hard work. In terms of the nominations and the and other board members, trying to think about who you might potentially be able to recruit, I just wanted to let people know that if there are people that you know of that might be interested that you speak with, and if they have any questions or think it would be helpful, I would be happy to do sort of a virtual, Google Meets or Zoom or whatever meetings with anyone to kind of talk about the expectations and what it's like to be on the board, and for them to ask me any questions. I know when I was considering being on the board, Dawn was so gracious to meet with me, and that was very, very helpful to me because it really helped me to understand sort of what the expectations would be and what it would be like to serve on the board. And so I'm very happy to do that for anyone who might be considering applying to be on the board. And so I just wanted to let you all know that. Feel free to reach out to me if I can help in any way with anyone that you know. So, all right. If there aren't any other questions, we're going to move on. The original strategic planning meeting, planning committee, the standing strategic planning committee didn't meet. We'll talk about the ad hoc committee in a minute. Facilities did meet. Robbie was not able to attend, and my understanding is that Rodney, you're doing double duty and going to tell us about that report as well. Oh, you're still on mute.
I was actually trying to find the notes he sent me. Give me one second. Okay, it's not in the PDF file for some reason in the folder. Hold on, there it is. So they've been working on a couple of different areas of stuff, just some stuff short term that they're actually working on for on campus now regarding some of the modulars that are in the, in the back as far as the underpinning, some of the draining issues. They've got a plan together working on those. They've got a list of things they're going to work with Melissa and Josh on for the school for the summer project. There was some notification that came from the town regarding some potential drainage issues that had come from some neighboring property. That's some work in progress to figure out where that's actually coming from. I do know from history there's a drainage pipe that goes under the back of the field at the back of the school and actually dumps out into the middle of the property. Whether or not there's potentially damage to that pipe, which is causing the water back up. They're still working with the town on that, and the neighbor property just to try to figure out the root cause of that. They've got some cameras that have been installed at the new modular classrooms, just to increase awareness and support for security on the campus, being safety is always a big concern. And that, carpool is always something they talk about a lot from a facilities layout perspective. From the most recent parent survey, it was positive in reference to carpool. So no burning fires there for all of us know the first week of school. That's usually the hot topic. And then they're looking on some longer term planning around HVAC units, really just trying to build a 3 to 5 year plan of anticipating larger expenditures that would come down the road. They're going to do some work on the playground out back with some of the mulch and just do some improvements in that area. And then actually one of the big areas for just cleanliness on campus is anywhere where the students are walking a lot on dirt really brings a lot of wear and tear. So they're looking at doing some sidewalk work between the elementary modulars just to try to get the kids off the dirt path. So just tidying up items around the campus. And that would be it.
Great. Thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions about the facilities update? All right. Thank you, Rodney, for filling in for both of those reports. We're going to move on to ad hoc committees. The Systematic Oversight Calendar Committee. Nicole, do you all have anything that you need to report, or did you meet?
We do not, but just please keep in mind anytime that you have anything that you think needs to go on that calendar, because again, it should be kind of a living document. Let's just try to keep that keep those reviews going.
Yeah, I think that's a great reminder, especially since we're not used to having that tool yet. We want to make sure that it's robust and complete. And so better to bring something up to see if it needs to be included and have us decide maybe not, than to not bring something up. So
and I guess, and Dr. Carpenter can add to this, I guess we need to incorporate reviewing it in meetings at certain times. I'll look back at it and, just as a, folks be aware this is coming and so on and so forth. I'm just not sure about how to utilize it in meetings. Dr. Carpenter, do you have any thoughts?
So its purpose isn't principally for use within the meeting per se. What its purpose is to organize the board's annual work on its annual recurring work, or its recurring work on an annual basis. So really the goal is to use it in putting together your agenda, because anything that's recurring will automatically make its way right into the new business section or segment of your meeting. Are you all using it? Have you been using it in the
Yes.
formation of your agendas yet? Okay.
Yes.
yeah, that's great to know that that's actually the main purpose. And I think that hopefully that helps you, Nicole, as you're creating the agenda, but it's also another reason why we all need to make sure that we verify that everything that needs to be on that calendar is. Okay, wonderful. Any questions for anybody, from anyone for Nicole on the strategic oversight calendar? Okay. Dawn, our policy committee, and I know under unfinished business, we're going to look at the policy on policies, but do you have anything else that to share from the committee?
The only thing I said before, that was a starting point, of course, but we had a little bit of discussion last time on what is considered board policies versus school policies. Like, we have some things that I think are just school policies. And so once the policies gets approved, I would like to offer that the following, our starting list for policies, include these, which is a board member agreement, which I believe we signed as a form Michelle sent out for the new year, if I'm correct. Did you send out a board member agreement that we agree to? I thought you did, Michelle, but I thought we signed off on that.
I think there's a code of conduct. Yeah. Did I send that out?
Okay, well,
Yeah.
they may be two separate policies because at Board Source for charter schools, they say that those are two separate things. But anyway, we can talk about that. The code of conduct, which we've already passed as a policy, but we would then transfer it into the appropriate format if that is approved. Conflict of interest, which we already have as a procedure, because we have to sign off on those conflict of interest forms, but we don't actually have as a board policy. You read the statement and so forth, but we literally don't have an official policy that says we have to adhere to that. Document retention and destruction, which I think is important because we really don't have a policy saying that we should keep our minutes for X amount of years, or where it should be, or when we're allowed to destroy things. And so that's a policy that this source is saying is an important one as a board, because we have so many documents. Federal Education Rights and Privacy Act, the FERPA policy for the board in terms of us understanding that we need to engage in that in FERPA and understand what that is, even if that includes, the policy includes that we have to go through annual training for FERPA to make sure that we can, or that's an important training that, say, a new board member has to have onboarding to go through FERPA training. They said something like gift acceptance. I don't know if, how you feel. I'm just saying that these are ones that they're saying are kind of must have initial policies. A non-discrimination, which we do not have anything along those lines. And I think that would be important as a board that we're saying that, that we will not discriminate when it comes to the selection of our board, and that the broader community our school community will not discriminate either. I'm certain that would have been a portion of that committee we had a couple of years ago that Dr. Swartzlander oversaw, where some of the families and parents and teachers were looking for us to move towards some of those statements and policy. Then it said whistleblower. I don't know if we need that, but those were the initial policies that once our policy on policies gets approved, that I would like to start building. Some of those were present in the guiding policy manual that Davidson School had, and then others are not, that we would have to build and create. And then, of course, all of those should be in support of school policies and not contradict. So we'd have to make sure that any policies Superintendent Edwards have, that the language is complementary. So once go ahead.
I'm sorry, Dawn, to interrupt. Just to make sure I have it correct in the minutes, you reference a board member agreement policy, conflict of interest, document retention and destruction, FERPA. Did you call the other one anti-discrimination?
No. Well, I said gift acceptance.
Oh.
Non-discrimination policy. And then whistleblower. I mean, this is just one source. That's a guide for charter schools as, kind of your basic package of policies. We don't have to have all of those, of course, if we don't feel that they're appropriate.
Thank you, Dawn. So is your thought then that once we approve the policy on policies, then the policy committee would work to sort of build out language around each of these, and then we could review and have discussion as a full board?
Yes. Yes. And like I said, Paul and I have some of the language already present that we could use as a, guide in Davidson. They had pretty, I think, good language. Others, we actually have the procedure in place, like, saying the code of, the conflict of interest before every meeting and signing off on things, but then we need to build a policy around it. And so I don't know if Paul, I don't know what your thoughts are, like we would write everything and present once a month. I mean, it would be a number of them. I think we need to decide if something like gift acceptance is something, because I didn't see that in a lot of board policies that I looked at, or whistleblower. We don't want to work on policies and no one really feels they're important to our board.
Yeah, I agree that.
Sorry, Dr. Carpenter. What? Sorry.
I'm sorry. Paul was first. I was just trying to.
Go ahead, Paul.
So one of the things I think as well is we've got to take a look at the existing policies that we have. As I noted, that they're on our board documents under existing policies for review and comment. They were put up last month. Hoping that everybody may take a chance to look through those and see if there's something that's left out that we need to throw in there as well. Part of it is going to be to make sure we look at these particular policies and I'll say codify those into some of the context and process that we have model for. The piece of that that I think about as well is how much of this can we import into a document without getting into a policy change for the board. So those are some considerations we'll have to look at. But I think Dawn's exactly right. With the first policies that we talk about, that's the opportunity to try to craft those in a way with the new format and take those through and get comfortable with that, and then start to bring some of these over into the same document.
Great. All right. Thank you, Paul. Dr. Carpenter?
I have a boilerplate whistleblower protections policy that I can send to you that you're welcome to use or tweak. It is a very important policy in terms of risk management, because when fraud occurs within an organization, it often happens because people are unaware of who they can report it to. So I have developed a boilerplate policy for that I'd be happy to send.
Thank you. Yes, we appreciate that.
Great. Wonderful. Okay, so make sure that we're clear, for the rest of the board, our work should be that between now and the next meeting to review the existing policies. And Paul, would you like, I'm sorry if you said this, but would you like us to comment on those, like as much like Michelle recommended, or do you want emails? What would be the best way for us to, ask any questions or make any comments?
So I think I would ask first that you take a look at this list that's in this file, and make sure that all of them are in there. And because I want to make sure that there's nothing that we've left out. So this is everything that I could go through and search in the last several years. So if you can do that right now, that would be good. And of course, any kind of comments that anyone wants to leave, just start maybe a text file or a Word file here and put some notes in it if there's something that so we don't forget as we start to get into these things. So this is the file, and I just want to show you that it is under the board document. So
great. Okay.
So, well, if they feel that there are policies that are not appropriate to be board policies, what do we do?
Policies. What do we do?
Well, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and I'll drop a comment sheet in here. I'll try to find, I got like a comment table or something, I think, and I'll just try to drop that in there for people to reference what they're talking about and just build upon that. It should be something that we can open in, Google Word or whatever. So I'll stick that in there. Is that fair enough?
I think so.
Yeah,
I could just read some and say, I think they're school policies versus board policies.
I know, exactly. That's what I was looking at, like dress code. And
right.
As we started going
retention,
through it.
That was,
yeah.
So, okay.
Exactly. So I'll put what I'll do is that way we keep up with all the comments in one place, and we can go back and find them as we start getting into this a little bit more. This is not an overnight thing. This is
because I do think that we had the hiring policy was like one of the first policies that the board worked on. Although I don't think that is now a board policy.
Right.
And in fact, there was some discussion because they weren't even following the policy, and they were like, "Hey, we had this board policy, but you guys are doing something different." So I'll see if I can find that as well. But that was like one of the board policies I remember all of us working on. I mean, people from the previous board as well.
Yeah. So,
great.
Okay. Well, there'll be a lot of help and look. So that's all. Thanks so much.
Yeah, and before we leave this topic, though, I just want to make sure, Dr. Edwards, you have access to that shared folder, correct?
I do.
Okay, because I think your perspective too on whether there are existing or new or plans to newly existing or plans to create some of these at the school level would also be really helpful at for all of us to know, because there's some that, like they were saying, that might seem like it could go either way, and so we'd love your perspective and thoughts on that. Thank you.
Jane, this is John.
Everybody has to mute if you're not talking, because there's a terrible echo.
You're not talking, there's a terrible echo.
Oh, that's better. Jane, may I ask a quick question?
Absolutely.
On on the policies, are we looking at them to see what is board and what is school policy, or we also looking at them substantively? The reason I'm asking that is because if we are looking at them substantively, there's quite a few there that will take some time. And I'm just wondering if we're doing a substantive review, if we should break them up so that everyone is reviewing the same ones at the same time, so that we can be more effective at getting through them.
I think that's a great question. My thought, and Dawn and Paul jump in here, my thought is the first thing we need to do is determine whether they're actually board policies or not. If they're not board policies, there's no point in us reviewing them for substance, right? And then once we've done that, then I think reviewing the ones that are board level, and also Dawn and Paul putting together drafts of potential new ones that we could then review. And I do like your idea of either assigning it or either assigning to small groups, or just simply saying this month we're looking at these 2 or 3 and having everybody look at them. Does that, Dawn and Paul, does that sound right?
Yeah, that's good.
I think that's fine. And I think if we go that route, we need maybe to have Dr. Edwards do a quick look too to something that they already have as a school policy.
So one point of order just to look at too is that policies that we determine are rather school policies. We may have to. Do we need to have some kind of overall board action that we've taken those away from policies and they are presented in a different place? So.
Right. I hear what you're saying, because right now they are existing board policies. So if they're not going to be moving forward, we need to do something formally with that.
Right.
Okay. Other questions?
And that may be, Nicole, something that we put in the strategic calendar that we do, like a policy review every, I don't know, 3 years or something like that. I don't know your thoughts on that. Sometimes it's hard to, I mean, some of them are 2014. I don't know if we've ever done an exhaustive review. It might be something that we want to build in to a calendar that anyone can bring, based on the policy on policies, you can present new policies, but maybe just every 5 years we do an exhaustive review of every policy, because some things you just may not ever pay attention to again.
Yeah, that's certainly something I can add. When I can just tentatively put it, do you want to do it yearly initially, since we're working on them so much, and then kind of, okay.
That sounds good.
I think
Do
that's
you have
great.
a preference of time of year?
I would think January. So if anything changes, we're prepping it for the next academic year, or the end of, the end of this academic year, like June or something. I don't know.
Dr. Edwards, do you have a preference, or is there a procedure that you use at the school in terms of timing?
I would think closer to the start of the school year would be helpful, so that when teachers come back in August, everything's already in place. We can share what we need to.
So if we reviewed in June and made any changes in July and adopted in, or so that we could, maybe review in June and make changes and adopt in July.
That would
Something
be
like
great.
that.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. Other questions on that? All right. Thank you, Dawn and Paul, for all of your work on that and for what sounds like additional work to come. And we appreciate it very much. Okay. We're moving on to unfinished business, the motions log, ad hoc committee for possible actions. Paul, I know that you've been leading the charge on that. What updates, if any, do you have to share?
In progress.
Wonderful. We
It's in
appreciate
progress.
it. I'm sure it's a very time-consuming, tedious job, but we really appreciate that you're doing it.
Another one of those long range things, most definitely.
Okay, wonderful.
Need a snowstorm, really.
So you just have several hours to kind of focus.
And only local internet that only goes to Google,
There you go. There you go. Well, so when you are ready for us to review, we'll be happy to take a look at it. But in the meantime, thank you again, because I'm, all joking aside, I do know it's a very tedious and time-consuming job, and we appreciate it. So thank you. Okay, strategic planning update under unfinished business with the ad hoc committee. So the ad hoc committee that you all talked about last month, that Benji agreed to lead, did meet. It was Benji and Rodney and Dr. Edwards, and then Dr. Carpenter and I tagged along. We were invited on for the meeting, and Benji, since he's not here, asked me if I would give everyone an update. Basically, we are, the committee talked a lot about what the responsibility of the committee is versus what Dr. Edwards' responsibilities and roles are in terms of the strategic plan. And Dr. Carpenter helped us a lot with that. And basically, what was decided is that the committee, as a board level committee, will have responsibility to craft the high level outcome goals, which correlate to the how well question that we all learned about in Dr. Carpenter's training. And Dr. Edwards basically has responsibility for everything else. Lucky her. But so she's going to be, and already is working on the strategic plan, which it will answer the how will question, right? So the strategic plan is going to have, it's going to be more specific. It will have action items as well as strategic steps that the school will be taking to reach those outcome level goals. The other thing that we as a committee decided, or rather that, clarified with Dr. Carpenter is probably a better word, is that the outcome goals that the committee will be working on will be focused on academics, on academic targets and high-level academic goals. The strategic plan that Dr. Edwards is working on will go beyond academics and move into culture and operations. And that makes sense to all of us. We all agreed with Dr. Carpenter, who said basically that in order to hit academic targets like the committee will be setting, Dr. Edwards will need to make sure that she's focused not just on academics, but also on operations and culture and all of those pieces that come together to ensure our students' success. The committee will also be looking at we'll be looking at, sorry, my dogs. We'll be looking at finances from a very high level perspective, just because as a board, we have responsibility for oversight over that. But it will still be Dr. Edwards working with the Finance Committee to work on the specifics. And then finally, the committee all agreed, and I know you all talked about this at the last board meeting, that we did not want to move forward as though the work of the previous strategic planning committee didn't matter or wasn't helpful or wasn't useful. We all agree that the work that the original strategic planning committee did has been really helpful to sort of determine where we stand right now. And they did a lot of work with external and internal data, gathering external and internal data to help us. And all of that will be used moving forward both by the committee and by Dr. Edwards. Benji is in the process of reaching out to members of that strategic planning committee, members beyond the people on this board who were members of that committee, to ensure that all of the work that was done is collected, gathered, make sure that we use that and we take all of that into account moving forward. We're very, very grateful for the commitment that the original strategic planning committee did. I know I haven't said this in a while because it's been several months since the committee met, but from the time that we created that committee, at the board at the board level, until we stopped doing those meetings, the committee met at least twice a month, often more than that, throughout the entire summer and for several months after that, and then broke up into smaller subgroups and met very frequently in those as well. So it was a very large time commitment, and everyone involved was very committed to it. And I'm really, really grateful. I was happy to get to lead that committee. And while I think moving forward that we're doing exactly what we should be doing from a governance rather than management perspective, I just wanted to publicly say how grateful I personally am and how grateful the school and this board are to the people who volunteered to serve on that committee and really did a lot of work that will be used moving forward to make sure that NEWS gets where we want it to go. So, does anybody have any questions or thoughts or comments about that update on the strategic planning?
I'll just say one thing, Jane. Good summary of what we talked about. I think what's really important is that what kind of hit home with me was having that dialogue with Dr. Carpenter about the measurement framework that he proposes from the absolute and relative, performance indicators. I think it's going to really push all of us to go spend some time to try to internalize what that framework's going to look like as we start to put it in actions, because otherwise it's going to be really hard. It's not just something as simple as school report card grade or 15 numbers that we put on a sheet before. It's kind of a different way of thinking about measurement. So that's just something I think as he does the micro training around that, it'll just require us a little bit of thought and time to really deeply understand it.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. And I'm glad that you said that, because I did forget to mention that that's something else that we, as when the committee met, that we talked about, that at next month's board meeting, which is when we're going to have that first pass of over the goals and the high level sort of strategic planning. Dr. Carpenter's micro training is going to focus on exactly what Rodney was talking about, which is how what those outcome goals are and what they measure, and why we're using this particular tools that we are to measure them, whether it's school report card or one of the other standardized tests, or what data we're using and why. And as Rodney said, I think his explanation really helped those of us who participated on that committee call last week. And so I know that will be really helpful to each of you as we then move forward, so that it's easier to understand where the goals, where they were derived and why they were derived from the places they were. Dr. Edwards, do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
No, y'all, you did a great job.
Thank you very much. All right. Any other questions on the strategic planning update? Okay, moving on. The last unfinished business item is the policy on policies. And I just have to say, I love that title. I feel kind of like I'm in the office or something. But I do think that we were all, the policy on policies was posted, and hopefully everyone had time to review it. Does anyone have any questions before I call for a motion on the policy on policies?
Jane, this is Michelle.
Mhm.
I don't have a question, just a comment. I made two comments on the document. One was on page 4 and number 3. At the very last sentence of number 3, it says the policy will acted upon following. I think it's just a typo that the word be, the policy will be acted. And then the second comment is under number 4, it says should inform the board chair or the director. Should we change that to superintendent?
Yes.
Okay.
I saw those before I came on, so those were fine. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, great. While we're looking at changes, if we're changing director to superintendent, do we need to change board chair to board president, since that's what it's going to say in the bylaws moving forward?
Oh, it is? Okay, yeah.
I think, right? Is that right, Michelle, or is it still?
That's the way the draft is drafted. It's with
Okay.
president. Mhm.
So since we don't have it changed in the bylaws yet, we should leave it as board chair for now, and then if we need to update this, we can.
Mhm.
Right. When we do our annual review.
There you go. All right, perfect. All right, great. Any other, thank you for that, Michelle. Any other thoughts or questions? Okay, then, I will entertain a motion about the policy on policies then to vote.
I move to approve the NCS policy on policies as drafted with the noted revisions in sections 3 and 4 on page 4.
Great, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Wonderful. Any discussion?
Michelle, can you just again tell me what your motion is? I didn't quite get it all. My internet went out a little bit.
Sure. I said that I moved to approve the NCS school policy on policies, or NCS policy on policies, with the changes as noted in sections 3 and 4 on page 4.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Hearing no discussion, I will call the roll for a vote. Nicole,
Aye.
Michelle,
Aye.
Dawn,
Aye.
Rodney,
Aye.
and Paul.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. We now officially have a policy on policies. Yay! That makes me happy. And it's actually really, really good. You guys did a great job on it. So thank you so much. Okay, I see nothing under new business. So, and nothing under ongoing board development and self-assessment. So, given that, we will be moving into closed session for personnel discussion pursuant to NCGS 143-318.11 A1 and A6 for personnel discussion. Okay. All right. So I will see you all in the closed session. Okay, so I think we are all back, and I will entertain a motion to vote on Dr. Edwards' personnel recommendations.
I make a motion to accept recommendations by Dr. Edwards' superintendent report.
Second.
Great. Okay. Any discussion? Well, no discussion. Okay, so I'm going to call the roll. Nicole,
Aye.
Michelle,
Aye.
Dawn,
Aye.
Rodney,
Aye.
Paul.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. And so having completed everything on our agenda, I hereby adjourn the News Charter School Board of Directors meeting at 7:32 p.m. on February 23rd, 2021. Thank you all very much. Have a great evening.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks.
Thank you.